Hello guys, this is your friend. We are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Naruto and Hinata Were Demon Couple Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start a new fanfic. Flashback Part 1. Naruto grinned widely, finally. He had been asking her and trying to get them to go on a proper date for ages, but they had always been exhausted from training or busy with other things. But what if we lose? Flashback ends. Start story. A few rules you have to follow. Moji said in his wise voice as he stood in the center of the dojo, his left hand firmly on his walking stick as he spoke to the three teenagers. 1. Only one of you can battle me at a time. Think of it as if it's a wrestling match. You have to tag another person so they can jump in and fight. All you need to do is yell out, switch, and then swap with another person. 2. No ninjutsu, but you can use chakra to strengthen your moves and weapons, but Naruto-kun can use his shadow clone jutsu, and Hinata-chan can use her juken because it's her taijutsu style. 3. You can't use Roki-kun or Masaki-chan during this fight, and 4. Only you will win once either of us are unable to fight, which means if even one of you are unconscious of unable to continue, the match is over, understood? Hi, they all said at once, before turning to each other. Who's first? Naruto asked. You. Sasuke said confidently. No one had actually said anything, but Sasuke was sort of the leader of the group, and no one really disagreed with that choice. He kept quiet and lingered in the back during most confrontations, making people usually believe that Naruto was in charge, but all three of them knew that Sasuke was practically the leader of the group from some unspoken agreement. Naruto, you shall go first. You have the most stamina out of all of us, and your shadow clones would be able to see how he fights. Me and Hinata will watch and decipher his strengths and try to find a weakness as you fight him, then tell you of what we came up with when we swap. Okay. That's fine with me. Let's get this going. Naruto smiled as Hinata and Sasuke sat on the edge of the dojo where two chairs were already set up and waiting, with Masaki and Roki laying down next to the chairs, heads on their paws. As you wish, Moji said, getting into an unfamiliar stance that none of the three had seen before. His legs were parted about shoulder length apart, leaning forward slightly with his walking stick in front of him, both hands clutching it securely. After a quick dissection of his stance, Naruto noticed that it looked like a defensive stance, so he had to be careful. He pulled his hands together in a familiar hand sign as he called out, Kage Bushin no Jutsu. And 5 clones popped out in a line next to him, 2 of them reaching for their bow and arrows and the other 3 charging. The real Naruto stayed back and watched as Moji flung his walking stick across the ground, tripping up 2 of the 3 clones, but they quickly regained their balance. The 2 that held their bows out, pointed at Moji, fired, the first arrow being knocked away by Moji's walking stick and the other hit a clone, effectively releasing it. The Naruto clones punched and kicked Moji, who was defending himself very well, releasing another clone as he pulled a kunai out of his pocket and stabbing it into the clone without any of the Narutos seeing him. Moji, however, nearly lost it when Naruto shot an arrow at him, hitting him in the calf, which he wasn't expecting, and the Naruto he was in close combat with landed a punch to his shoulder. But before the clone could do any damage, Moji pressed a hidden button on his staff and 3 small black balls came rolling out the bottom of his walking stick, all 3 blowing up in black smoke, filling the dojo completely. Approximately 3.5 seconds later, Sasuke and Hinata heard Naruto call out, all my clones are dispatched, and I can't see through this smoke. Hinata, who had her Byakugan opened, yelled out, switch. I'm the only one who can see through the smoke and we need to make sure we conserve our energy as much as possible. Alright, Naruto called out as he ran towards Hinata's voice, and Hinata ran out onto the dojo, Byakugan activated. Sasuke helped Naruto onto the chair and told him everything he saw as Hinata got into her stance, her right hand forwards, palm out, one leg in front of the other and her left hand fisted underneath her chin, blades on her left hand already out. Let's do this, Moji-sensei. was all the warning as she ran towards his figure in the smoke. She watched him get into a defensive stance as she reached him, and dodged the kunai that were thrown in her direction. He didn't want her to get close, because he knew she was an excellent close combat fighter. So he was trying to keep her back. Quickly, she pulled out some senbon that was hiding under her left glove with her bladed hand and threw them at Moji, but he sensed them and dodged before they could impale his neck and temporarily paralyze him like she intended. The next thing she knew, senbon were flying at her in an alarming speed, all coming out the end of his staff. Hinata got as low to the ground as possible to dodge the senbon and spat one senbon of her own out of her mouth, which was heading towards his foot. Luckily for her, he didn't notice that one until it impaled a ligament in his foot, making him need the walking stick a lot more than before. Smiling to herself, Hinata jumped up and once again charged towards Moji, swinging her clawed hand across his torso, which was stopped by his staff, but that was only a decoy. Her left hand was sent over to his arm holding the staff, and blocked some of the tenketsu in his arm. By now, the smoke had all faded from the room, and Hinata was surprised to see the bottom of his wooden staff suddenly peel of the edges and reveal a long blade that looked a lot like a sword with a wooden hilt. He swung around and knocked Hinata off of her feet, but she twisted her body midair to dodge the blade that was coming down on her, but she was impaled by quite a few senbon. Landing on her feet, Hinata did a couple backflips to create distance between the two of them, breathing heavily. Switch. She called out, Sasuke, he's got a sword, you would be best suited for fighting him now since you know how swordsmen fight. And she retreated to the chairs. Sasuke passed her as she was walking and patted her on the back saying, you did good, as he continued to the field and Hinata took a seat and started healing her injuries. Any weaknesses? Naruto asked as she sat down. I tore a ligament in his left ankle, and he can't use any chakra in his right hand anymore, so that means no more tricky stuff with his staff, he won't be able to change it anymore, so it will stay a sword. Hinata summarized. Naruto just smiled at her, that's my girl. And tousled her hair slightly before turning back to the fight. Moji was panting by now, since he had already been through Naruto and Hinata, and all Sasuke and Moji were doing were parrying and blocking, that is until Sasuke pulled out a kunai with his free hand from his kunai pouch and pierced Moji's left shoulder with it. But Moji used that to his advantage, he spun his leg across the ground, tripping Sasuke up and sliced Sasuke's leg with his sword. Luckily for Sasuke, the wound wasn't deep, but it was painful. Quickly getting back into stance, Sasuke charged once again. Strike, parry, dodge, dodge, feign, parry, parry, strike, dodge, and he continued to close up with their sensei as the other two watched intently. In the corner of his eye, Sasuke saw something shine on the ground, so, doing a leg sweep to distract Moji, he reached down and picked up the senbon, throwing it at Moji's injured arm with deadly accuracy, then running in with his sword before Moji could gather what was going on. Sasuke smirked when he got a hit, slicing along Moji's left leg, rendering it useless, and Sasuke jumped forward, holding his sword to Moji's throat. We win, he smirked. Moji nodded, and Sasuke retracted his sword, sheathing it at his side as Hinata ran over and started healing Moji's wounds before working on Sasuke's. She had already healed Naruto while the two were standing back and watching the fight, so everyone was soon in perfect condition. You did well. Moji started as the six of them, including the animals, took a seat on the floor. You have all passed my expectations and there is nothing more I can teach you. What you need now is experience, and, knowing Naruto, he will be getting in enough trouble for all of you to be able to get more than enough of experience. Naruto protested rather loudly at that as Hinata giggled and Sasuke chuckled. I am proud to be teaching you, and, one day, when you all are highly known ninja, I will be proud to tell people of how I taught these legends. He smiled gently, gaining a hug from Hinata. You've probably stayed here in Spring Country for far too long, you should probably continue your travels. But if you ever pass by, you know where to find me. Hinata gently broke her hug, This is definitely not the last time we'll see you, Moji-sensei. And with that, Hinata bowed respectfully and gave the man a kiss on the cheek. Thank you. Hey, Naruto complained. Nah, now look old man, you're stealing my girlfriend away from me. He joked, making everyone laugh. He then held out a hand for Moji to shake. Goodbye, old man. This is probably be the last time we'll see you in a while. Sasuke then held his hand out to be shaken. Yes, we shall leave tomorrow, as I heard someone has a date tonight. He gave a pointed look at his teammates, who just smiled, Hinata with a small blush. Goodbye, Moji-san. And he also bowed respectfully as they headed off back towards their hotel to pack, and for Naruto and Hinata to get ready for their date. Sasuke watched with an amused smirk as Naruto trudged around the hotel room he and Naruto shared, only wearing a pair of black-tinted jeans as he kept mumbling to himself about his blue shirt. Sasuke had seen the shirt about half an hour ago half hidden under Naruto's pillow, but he wasn't going to tell Naruto that any time soon. Plus, Naruto hadn't asked him, so he wasn't technically lying. Roki sighed. He had also seen the shirt his master was looking for, and he decided that it had gone on for long enough. Check under your pillow, Baka. Roki informed as Naruto followed his instructions. There it is. Naruto shouted as he grabbed the shirt and put it on, and doing all the buttons up apart from the top three. Sasuke chuckled at Naruto. Well, that took you half an hour. Half an hour. Half an hour. Shit. Hinata's going to be here soon. And with that, Naruto was off again, putting his shoes on and trying to slightly tame his golden hair, with no luck, and making sure he had Gama-chan, his frog wallet, in his pocket. Knock knock. Naruto quickly grabbed the lavender and white flowers from off of his bench and running towards the door, flinging it open, only to open his mouth wide open, his eyes huge, gaping wildly at the sight. Hinata was standing in front of him, wearing a lavender sundress that was slightly darker than her eyes. It reached just above her knees, and it was strapless, with a lighter lavender belt around her waist. Her hair was put up into an elegant bun, hair sticks holding it in place, and she had mascara and light blush on. She blushed at Naruto's openly gaping and odd expression. Sasuke walked up next to Naruto. I think the words you are looking for are, you look beautiful, you speechless doby. He sighed as he moved his hand over and lifted Naruto's jaw up so it was no longer hanging down in awe. Naruto hummed in agreement, nodding gently and handing the bouquet in his hands to Hinata as he kissed her hand. Have fun, Hinata Imouto, and if Naruto does anything stupid, who am I kidding? Of course he'll do something stupid. Just don't be afraid to juken him out of the country. We can always look for him later. Sasuke smirked as Naruto made out a half-coherent protest in his dazed state before he was silenced, and Hinata took him out of the room with a giggle, smiling at her new nickname from Sasuke. I'm sure he'll be fine. Hinata smiled. Sasuke smirked back. Yeah, because now he's so speechless he can barely say 2 words. But I'm pretty sure it translates to, you look gorgeous. He complimented, making Hinata smile and blush. Thank you, Sasuke-ni. And look after Misaki and Roki for us, please, Hinata said as Misaki walked into the room, and Hinata led Naruto out of the room and shut the door behind her. Well, where are we going, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked once the two were standing out on the streets. Naruto had snapped out of his dazed state by now, and grinned at her. First, we are going to get something to eat. He smiled, taking her hand and leading the way. Naruto led the way throughout the town, until they came across Kira's restaurant. Naruto smiled and led Hinata inside. Do you have a reservation? The server asked as they walked through the doors. Naruto nodded. It's under Uzumaki. The server nodded, looking at the paper in his hand, searching for the name before pointing out their booth. That is your table, the waiter will be there shortly. Thank you. Hinata smiled at her, and Naruto walked towards their booth and took a seat. Well, we're leaving this place tomorrow. Where do you think we should go next? Naruto asked as they sat down. Not sure. We could always just wander and just end up somewhere. I wouldn't really mind. She thought about it. Yeah, same here. This is starting to feel a little bit like a holiday, don't you think? He put his elbows on the table and leaned his head on his hands. Yeah, well, apart from all the training and fighting we do, it is kind of like a holiday. She smiled, but we would be training anyway if it were a holiday, so it isn't much different. Hello. A young woman walked up to the booth with a piece of paper and pen in her hands. I am Keita, your server for today. Have you decided what you would like to order today? She asked politely. Naruto and Hinata ordered quickly, and ate their food with a casual conversation between the two of them. That was delicious. Naruto smiled as Keita came back to collect their bill. Hinata nodded. Yes, thank you Keita-san. Keita smiled at the two of them. You're very welcome Hinata-san. They said quick goodbyes before walking out of the restaurant, and Hinata turned to Naruto. Well, what's next? She asked, grabbing his hand and leaning against him slightly. He just smiled, not answering her question until the two were standing outside a cinema. Here we are. Come on. Let's go check what movies are on. The Lost Ninja, Scarred, Ika Ika. The movie, Wince, and Walk Past Really Fast, the Jinchuriki. Both Naruto and Hinata stood still when they read that one. The Jinchuriki, it's supposed to be a horror. Well, Hina-chan, do you want to see how wrong these guys are with their facts? Hinata just smiled. Yeah, let's watch it. Naruto bought tickets and popcorn and soon enough, the two of them were sitting up the back of the theater, waiting for the movie to start. My guess is that there's some evil Jinchuriki that goes around killing people because that's what Jinchurikis do. He said sarcastically. Hinata nodded. Yeah, and then someone will save the day by killing the dreadful Jinchuriki. He snorted. Not gonna happen. Yeah, I'd like to see them come after us. Hinata nodded in agreement as the movie started. The movie was about two ninjas, one girl and one boy, who got together and then a Jinchuriki had appeared in their country and tried to kill them. This is bad. We can talk. It's not like we're retarded or something. Naruto whined when the two noticed that the Jinchuriki couldn't speak coherent words. Hinata nodded in agreement, and since when does a kunai knock us down? We have fast healing. And we aren't dumb. These guys have no idea what they're talking about. Naruto decided as he grabbed another handful of popcorn. Halfway through the movie Naruto pulled the classic, stretch and drape, technique earning a laugh from Hinata as she cuddled up to him. You are so corny, Naruto-kun. He smiled back. Well it worked didn't it? I like your corniness anyway. She smiled and rested her head on his shoulder. Naruto then picked up a piece of popcorn. Okay, I want you to make out you're watching the movie when I say so, got it? Hinata nodded, giving him a confused look until he threw the popcorn at a man a couple seats ahead of them. The man was about to turn around when Naruto whispered, watch. And both of them suddenly found the movie very interesting as the man looked around behind him, wondering what he felt on the back of his head. Hinata smiled at Naruto and picked a piece of popcorn up herself. You know, you should be going for the girls. It would scare the hell out of them. Hinata advised and chose a girl that seemed to be shaking as she was cuddling up to her boyfriend. That one. And she threw the popcorn at her, hitting her directly in the back of the head, making her jump and let out a half-choked squeak. I never knew you were so mean. Naruto teased as the two pretended to be watching the movie once again. Hinata looked up at him with a smile. I've probably been around Sasuke-ni too long. Naruto laughed. That's fine with me, but as long as you don't start going around saying, HN, all the time, or else I'm going to have to slap you. He joked. I'll keep that in mind. Demon couple. Well, you were right. He did save the day by killing the Jinchuriki. Naruto sighed as the two walked out of the cinema. I wonder what would have happened if they all knew that we were Jinchuriki. Hinata wondered as they continued to walk. Well, they'd be running like hell. Or, they'd be coming after us with kunai. Naruto laughed and looked up, realizing that they were at a playground in a park. Come on, let's sit down. He took a seat on the swing, patting his lap for Hinata to sit down. Hinata smiled at him and took a seat on his lap. Didn't you always used to sit on a swing back in the academy? He smiled at her. Yeah, I didn't have any friends, so I'd sit by myself on the swing. Hinata half turned around so she was looking straight at his face. Well, I didn't have any friends either. I was too shy to talk to people. But anyways, you're not alone anymore, and neither am I. She smiled at him. And I love you. You know that. He smiled. I love you too, and you better not forget it. He leaned close to her and captured her lips in a kiss. I don't think I could even if I wanted to. Hinata murmured into the kiss as she wrapped her arms around his neck, deepening the kiss. I wouldn't want to, he mumbled back as she ran her hands through his hair. Hinata smiled into the kiss when she felt Naruto remove his hands from the swing and wrap them around her waist. Crash! Naruto fell backwards off of the swing with Hinata on top of him, effectively breaking the kiss as the two burst into laughter. Hinata smiled. Isn't that sad how a talented ninja like you can't even stay on a swing without falling off? She giggled. Naruto kissed her nose. Well, it gets kind of difficult when he's distracted by kissing the most beautiful girl in the world. Hinata laughed again. You are so corny, but I love you for it. It was her turn to kiss him on the nose. Naruto grinned widely. While I wouldn't mind kissing you for another hour or so, we've gotta get back or Sasuke will be pissed off and we need to get ready to leave tomorrow. Hinata stood up from the ground after one last kiss. Okay, let's get back to our hotel. Demon couple, why are you covered in grass? Sasuke asked as Naruto walked through the door of their hotel room. Naruto chuckled slightly. Fell of a swing. Sasuke just sighed. I'm not going to ask how. Come on, we have to pack tonight so we can be ready to leave tomorrow morning. Why the rush? We aren't going anywhere special, and we've still got around 9 months to travel. Naruto sighed. We can't stay in one place too long, because once people realize who we are, they'll be everyone after us. We have got pretty large bounties on our heads, you know. Sasuke explained as he finished sealing everything into his scroll. Naruto followed his example. Okay, I get it. He yawned as he finished up too. Well, I'm done. Good night, Tem. Night, Dobi. I'll miss you guys. Yukie yelled as she embraced the three in a bone-crushing hug. We'll miss you too, Yukie-chan. Naruto smiled as he escaped her embrace. You have to come back and visit. Oh, and Naruto, Hinata, you better give me an invitation to your wedding. She gave Hinata and Naruto a knowing look, making them blush. Sasuke chuckled at their embarrassed looks. I'll make sure they give you one, he smirked. Come on guys, let's get out of here. With that, the 5 of them left Spring Country, leaving Yukie behind. Demon couple, so where are we heading now? Naruto asked as they walked along a path that merchants usually took away from Spring Country. If we keep heading in this direction, we will come across a town called Joshi. It's famous for its many hot springs. We can stay there for the night. Sasuke replied with confidence. Hey, Hinata Imouto, how do you have enough money to pay for everything anyway? You don't do any jobs to get money, so how do you have all of it? Hinata smiled and pulled a credit card out of her kunai pouch. I might have borrowed this from my father. He hasn't noticed because he has so many. And this is connected directly to the Hyuga treasury. Naruto smiled proudly. Yeah. Take that Hyuga bastards. Well, I guess we won't be running out of money anytime soon then, Sasuke remarked thoughtfully as Hinata put the card back in her kunai pouch. To Joshi, Naruto yelled, throwing a fist in the direction they were walking, an excited look on his face, making Sasuke sigh in exasperation and Hinata giggle slightly. Shut up, Dobi. Demon couple, how far away are we now? Naruto asked for the 5th time in 10 minutes. I said that we had half an hour to go. Stop asking that, I'll tell you when we get there. Sasuke snapped, annoyed and sick of Naruto's constant badgering. Okay. No need to be snappy. Naruto said, Sasuke and Hinata both sighing at their blonde friend. We're stuck with him for 9 more months. Hinata, if I show signs of madness, you're going to have to kill me. Sasuke turned to the raven-haired girl who was walking next to him. Got it. Hinata giggled slightly, but you have to do the same for me, because I'm pretty sure I'll be stuck with him for a lot longer than 9 months. Yeah, well, you're going to have to tame him if you want to keep him. Trust me, if you do it would be better for everyone. I'll get right to that. Hinata smiled at her brother-like figure. Hinata and Sasuke did look fairly similar, even though they weren't blood-related. So that's why they were pretending to be siblings during their travels. They had already talked about this, and if anyone asked, Sasuke and Hinata were brother and sister. Naruto was still Hinata's boyfriend and the three were on a holiday traveling across the world. They had planned this out since they first began a team, because if anyone recognized them, they would immediately have hunter nins after them. Demon couple. Welcome to Joshi. That was written on a sign that the five came across a half an hour later. Finally, Naruto yelled dramatically as he kissed the sign. Sasuke and Hinata just sighed at the blonde as he continued to dance around, hugging nearby trees, and Hinata, dramatically. Okay, guys, I'm heading for the hot spring. Hinata sighed as she pried Naruto off of her and kissed him on the cheek. You guys coming? Sasuke nodded, grabbing Naruto. Yeah, we're coming, this guy really needs to relax. Roki, Misaki, stay out here and just relax for a bit. Okay. Hinata patted the dogs on their heads before walking into the women's side of the hot spring. Yes, mistress. Misaki nodded to her mistress before watching her disappear behind a door. Hinata smiled to herself as she took off all of her clothes and placed them in one of the lockers supplied, placing her fake white camellia on top of her neatly folded pile of clothes. Humming to herself, she placed a towel around her body and walked out into the hot springs. That's when it hit her. Hinata felt a presence staring directly at her. Looking around, there was only 2 other people in the hot spring, and the 2 blonde women were having a pleasant conversation with each other. And neither of them were looking at her. She heard a very quiet perverted giggle from on the other side of the wooden wall and caught sight of a small peephole in the wood. Stupid pervert, she thought to herself as she turned her back to the guy, activated her Byakugan and made it look like she was running her hand through her hair but really pulled out a Senbon and threw it accurately through the peephole. Hinata's eyes widened when she saw the old man jump out of the way of the Senbon and resume the same position as before. Scowling to herself, she deactivated her Byakugan and removed herself from the hot spring to give the guy a piece of her mind. Tightening the towel around her, she walked out of the hot spring and towards the still giggling man, pervert. She growled at him, and kicked him away from the peephole. She knew this guy was a ninja, or else he wouldn't have been able to dodge her Senbon. Hell, he wouldn't have even been able to see the Senbon until it was too late. The man quickly got off of the ground. You're good, I barely noticed you. But I am the Legan. He was cut off by 2 half-dressed people and 2 dogs intruding in the scene. What the hell is going on here? A half-dressed Naruto yelled, only wearing pants and 1 sock, with Sasuke by his side, both of their hair dripping wet. Naruto locked eyes with the pervert that was peeping on the women's spring, Ero Sennin. He asked incredulously. Sasuke's eyebrows rose, this guy was your sensei. This pervert was your sensei. Hinata rephrased his question. Pervert. Naruto glared at the older man. You better not have been peeping at Hinata-chan, he said, voice low and threatening. Jiraiya just looked at the 3, nope. I was hoping, but she never took her towel off. She would have been great research for my next book though, by the look of. He was interrupted once again, but this time it was a punch to the face. Hinata was blushing madly when Naruto punched Jiraiya in the face. Shut up. You damn pervert, stop damn staring at my girlfriend. Hinata tightened her towel around her while Jiraiya got up off of the ground. Girlfriend? Well, I have taught you well. She is so much better than flat-chested Pinky you were after before. Jiraiya nodded to himself in acceptance. Whatever, Ero Sennin. Let's go sit down somewhere, I have to tell you everything. Naruto exclaimed. Naruto-kun. You and Sasuke-ni should probably finish getting dressed first. And if you hadn't noticed, I'm only in a towel. And I'm not leaving like this. Hinata informed. Oh, right. Naruto smiled, scratching the back of his head. Wait for us outside when you're done. And gave her a peck on the forehead. Demon couple. So, why are you with two missing nins? Jiraiya asked Naruto as the six of them were sitting in a booth of a small cafe. Naruto and Hinata were on one side of the booth, Jiraiya and Sasuke on the other, with the two dogs lying on the floor by their feet. Well, you know how when we were training I'd always talk about this girl I missed so much and wanted to see so badly? He asked, making Hinata blush brightly. Jiraiya nodded. Yeah, that was Hinata-san, wasn't it? Now it was Naruto's turn to nod. Yeah, and when I finally got back she wasn't there, and we went to the Hokage's office and she showed me that letter. Well, I was determined to see her again, and then when I went to Suna to save Gaara she showed up. We talked and I tried to get her to come back with us, then I tried to go with her, but she told me I shouldn't become a missing nin without at least thinking about the consequences. Then she told me she knew where Sasuke would be, and she said I should have my decision by then when we see each other again. Naruto summarized. Then we found Sasuke, and he decided to leave with Hinata, and I am on a mission which involves keeping an eye on two missing nin. Well, it was originally one, but I got another one added onto the pile. Oh, yeah, and I've gotta convince these two to come back to Konoha with me when I'm done. Well, kid, you've done a lot while I had been gone. There's been some commotion while you've been gone. Apparently, an old Konoha nin, by the name of Takasho, has been experimenting in creating some unknown unbelievably strong half-human creatures. And he's trying to get back at Konoha. We don't know anything about the creatures yet though, which is why I'm around. The last one was found in Spring Country, so I'm headed there to check it out. Jiraiya explained. The other three people on the table's eyes opened up in recognition, when Hinata decided to speak up. Jiraiya-sama. He's no longer in Spring Country. It was one of the mutants. We've already seen him, and he isn't the least bit human. She shuddered at the memory, getting a reassuring hug from Naruto and a sympathetic look from Sasuke. Jiraiya's eyebrows shot up. Well, I need to know everything you know about him. He turned to Sasuke. I don't know much, you should be asking Hinata, she was the one who had first-hand experience with him. Sasuke pointed out. Hinata shuddered again before turning to Jiraiya. Well. His name was Lust, and his name was the best thing to describe his attitude. He told me he has 6 other brothers. Like him, all mutants, he disguised himself as a human. The only odd thing about him as a human was his bright orange eyes. Hinata summarized rather awkwardly. When he was in his true form he looked rather demented. He had a hunchback, huge muscly legs and a small torso. He still had his orange eyes, but he wasn't human. How come Hinata had first-hand experience and the rest of you didn't? Jiraiya asked, rather confused. Naruto sighed and patted Hinata reassuringly on the back. That's not something we want to think about, Jiraiya. If you want I'll tell you later, but some of us would rather not relive those events right now. Jiraiya just nodded in understanding. Well, overall, I'm proud of you boy. You seem to have come far since I last seen you. And you've done a great job in looking after Hinata-san. Thanks a lot Ero Sennin. Naruto acknowledged with a small smile. Hinata smiled too, gently getting up from Naruto's lap. Well, I'm going to go back to the bathhouse. This time, I'm actually going to get in the water. And there better not be any more perverts. I really need to relax all my muscles. Sasuke nodded to the girl. If you need us, get Masaki to seek us out. We won't be too far, probably looking for a hotel. Hinata nodded in recognition and thanks, before turning to Naruto who had started to speak. We'll see you soon. He smiled at her, earning himself a peck on the cheek before Hinata walked out of the room. Wyatt SSHHH. Jiraiya made a whipping noise. He is whipped. Sasuke agreed with a smirk. I am not whipped, Naruto complained, earning an, oh, really? From both Jiraiya and Sasuke. Demon couple. That was relaxing. Hinata sighed as she walked out of the hot springs. Misaki. Where are the boys? She thought as she walked casually down the road. Sitting outside the Sunnyside Hotel, getting a bite to eat. Hinata heard Misaki's voice echo through her head. Thanks, Misaki. Are you with them? And what about Jiraiya-sama? Jiraiya isn't with Sasuke and Naruto, but me and Roki are staying with them. It's close to that restaurant we stayed at lunch. And with that, the conversation ended and Hinata walked towards the group. A bustling feeling ran over her as she was about to reach the group, causing her to freeze and look around. Someone strong was near. Realizing they might be watching her, she acted natural and walked the next 10 steps to her comrades. You feel it too, huh? Naruto asked as he saw Hinata acting uncomfortable. He went over to give her a hug when she stopped him. Wait, if there is someone watching us, we don't want to give them any information about ourselves. Hinata said rationally, watching as Naruto nodded in agreement, although he had a disappointed look on his face. Hinata, check our surroundings with your Byakugan, Sasuke said. Hinata did as he said, but what she saw wasn't a good thing. Quote exclamation mark quote. Hinata cursed loudly, making Naruto and Sasuke turn to her alarmed. Hinata never swore, ever, so something was seriously wrong. What is it? Sasuke asked. We have to move, now, she ordered. Naruto grabbed onto Hinata. Hinata. What did you see? Hinata took a deep breath. Orochimaru. Shit. Well, Roki, Misaki, get Jiraiya. We need backup, Sasuke ordered. The dogs nodded, and took off in the opposite direction the others were facing, their noses to the ground. Hinata, how many are there? Naruto asked. Kabuto and Orochimaru are our only threats. There are some others, but they aren't strong. We could probably get Misaki and Roki to take out the easy ones. I'll take Kabuto, and you two handle Orochimaru. Hinata said thoughtfully. That sounds good. But while Misaki and Roki aren't back, we'll need Naruto clones to start to take out the others. Sasuke added. Alright, sounds like a plan. How many are there, Hinata? Naruto asked. Only about 100. They aren't very strong, apart from Orochimaru and Kabuto. I think they think that Sasuke's alone. Hinata guessed. Alright, then we use that to our advantage. You two conceal yourselves, and when they are distracted, Hinata you take on Kabuto, and try to get him alone. And Naruto, we'll do the same for Orochimaru. How far away are they? Sasuke turned back to Hinata. 800 meters and gaining fast. Hinata said as her and Naruto disappeared into the bushes, using their demon chakra to conceal themselves and watch the spectacle play out. Demon couple. Hello Sasuke-kun. I heard you've been on a little vacation. Orochimaru smiled threateningly as his yellow snake-like eyes followed every movement of the Uchiha. Sasuke grunted, as he usually did when he addressed this criminal. Well, you got new clothes too. Interesting. Kabuto noticed. Well, now vacation's over, and you need to get your training back on track. Kabuto glared, a little jealous of Sasuke and how he was always Orochimaru's favorite. No, Sasuke stated confidently, looking straight into the eyes of his ex-teachers. That isn't your decision to make, Sasuke-kun. Orochimaru continued to smile. All of Orochimaru and Kabuto's henchmen were standing back, waiting for orders, and since they were far back, Naruto and Hinata chose their time to strike. Hinata saw Misaki, Roki and Jiraiya closing in, so she knew the henchmen would be taken care of. Pulling out more demon chakra, Naruto and Hinata used it to speed forward at an alarming rate, Hinata delivering a charged palm strike to Kabuto's back, sending him flying into the forest and herself running after him, while Naruto knew his wouldn't be as easy. He charged Orochimaru, and knowing the Sannin would block any attack to him, send a Rasengan straight towards the ground at their feet, sending both flying in different directions. Sasuke ran after Orochimaru and Naruto quickly regained his balance and followed, leaving all the henchmen to stand there, as their backup finally made it to the group. Demon couple. With Hinata. Hyuga Hinata. Kabuto stood up, watching the female land right in front of him, in her own modified fighting stance. It's just Hinata, she corrected, before charging towards her opponent, activating her Byakugan. Luckily, Hinata could see Kabuto's chakra scalpel he created out of each hand with her Byakugan, giving her a slight advantage, but Kabuto already knew much about Hinata, so he jumped backwards, knowing that she was a close combat fighter. So you're with Sasuke, That's surprising. I was expecting Naruto-kun. But I never would have guessed you were there too. Kabuto smirked. Well, easier for me. You may be S rank in the bingo book, but I know a lot about you, Hinata. It was Hinata's turn to smirk. Trust me, the bingo book knows nothing about me. Kabuto charged forward this time. I didn't get my information from the bingo book. He yelled, charging and attempting to slice the muscle in Hinata's legs with his chakra scalpel. Hinata jumped up and pulled out her blades on her left hand to strike across Kabuto's chest, but he jumped backwards, dodging easily, and Hinata was glad for the space. Hinata knew by the look on his face that he had no idea that she could do that with her gloves, and using his shock to her advantage, threw a couple senbon in his direction, subtly placing one in her mouth before once again charging forward. Kabuto quickly got out of his shock, and dodged the senbon, throwing his own towards the girl, before doing a leg sweep, sending her jumping into the air once again. This time, he impaled her leg with a kunai before she could attempt anything, and she couldn't dodge midair, so she spat out the senbon in her mouth towards his neck. He wasn't fast enough to dodge it completely, but he did manage to move enough so it would hit anything vital. Quickly pulling out the kunai from her leg with a grunt, she threw that at him too, hitting him in the shoulder as she hit the ground hard and limped backwards, calling upon Gobi Chakra to heal her leg fast. Surprising, here you are trying to kill me, when I saved your life. He smirked, pulling the kunai out of his shoulder. Hinata did a double take. What? The Chunin exams. You were going to die that day. And if it wasn't for me, you'd be dead right now. He grinned at her shocked look, and threw the kunai back at her. Hinata dodged the kunai, but she was still in shock. She immediately knew that Kabuto was telling the truth, and she dodged his punches, but every time she went for a vital hit, she seemed to hesitate, making Kabuto smile. He noticed her hesitation, so left himself open, and when Hinata went for it, hesitating on the last second, he pulled his chakra scalpel out and sliced all the muscle on her left arm, making her cringe from the pain and jump away for some distance. He continued to use Hinata's hesitation to his advantage, waiting for the exact moment to strike when she was vulnerable, and Hinata couldn't find it in herself to kill someone who saved her life. Hinata felt tears in her eyes if she came to a realization. I don't know if I can kill him, Hinata thought to herself as she went on the defensive. Demon couple. With Sasuke and Naruto, they all were panting heavily, scratched and deep cuts in their skin. We can't hold back. We need to take this up a notch. Sasuke turned to his brother, seemingly worse off out of the three of them. Orochimaru barely even had a scratch on him, but he was panting too, and the ground surrounding them was covered in ditches, fissures and disintegrated ash from trees and grass that had been utterly destroyed. Naruto nodded, bringing up as much demon chakra as he could, feeling that familiar feeling as the red chakra started to flow around his body. Looking over to Sasuke, he saw his black marks covering his body, changing his appearance completely as they finally finished with Sasuke growing hand-like wings out of his back. Let's do this, Naruto said as he instantly grew two tails. I see you've gotten a little bit stronger. Orochimaru smirked. But I am one of the Sannin, and you two are no match for me. Underestimating your opponent is a bad choice. Sasuke smirked as the long black-haired pale Sannin. Nah, man, you're starting to sound like Kakashi-sensei. Seriously, if you start appearing late, I swear I'm going to kick your. Naruto chuckled. Naruto, are you forgetting that we are in the middle of a battle, and you shouldn't be making jokes? Sasuke sighed, getting into his fighting stance. Naruto followed suit, getting into his own fighting stance, prepared for anything as Orochimaru started doing hand signs, summoning jutsu. Sasuke smirked. You do know that you can't summon a snake to fight another snake summoner. Snakes do have a sense of loyalty and honor, you know. He sighed as he saw Manda appear, the huge snake staring down at all of them. Take out the blonde, Orochimaru ordered, as Naruto made his own hand sign. Kage Bushin no Jutsu, and hundreds of Narutos appeared. I have a bone to pick with you guys. One of you ate me before. And I didn't do anything to you. All the Narutos ran towards the giant purple snake. Manda, Sasuke yelled out, don't do it. Manda, the giant purple snake, was confused on what to do. His bright yellow eyes watched the blonde close up on him. Quickly deciding this blonde was a threat, he slithered into action. Then let's see how you like being eaten twice. Naruto's Kyuubi chakra was stable outside his body, looking as though he had a second skin, but red and transparent, with fox ears and two fox tails. Well, foxes eat snakes. Sasuke sighed. If Naruto hadn't charged the giant poisonous snake, he might have been able to convince him not to attack. What do you want, Orochimaru? Sasuke glared at his old master. I see you do not wish to return. Do you? Pity. I had some information you want to know. His neck stretched to that of a giraffe's as he got into battle stance. What information? Sasuke quickly withdrew his sword. He had to stall until Naruto had taken care of Manda. Sasuke knew he was no match for Orochimaru on his own. Something you might want to know about the 7 deadly sins. Sasuke raised a brow. He had no idea what Orochimaru was talking about. Oh, you know quite well, the 7 that have targeted Konoha and the Hyuga friend of yours. They're targeting Hinata. Sasuke's eyes widened. Oh, not all of them. One in particular. He decided he had said enough and his body sprang forward, towards the unsuspecting Sasuke. Sasuke cursed himself for being caught off guard as he smashed into a tree from the body slam and quickly got up and prepared to fight, only to find a long slimy tongue trying to wrap around his legs. Withdrawing his sword, he sliced the tongue and jumped back, a blade in one hand, his prized jutsu, the Chidori, in the other. I can't believe you of all people, underestimate me, Sasuke-kun. Sasuke only smirked. I'm sorry, but I think that you are the one who seems to be underestimating me. He charged, although, deep down, he knew there was no hope. But that didn't mean he wasn't going to go down fighting. His Sharingan was activated, so he used that to his advantage. Watching intently as he charged, he concentrated on the moves he could see Orochimaru about to do, and dodged them to counter. He managed to scrape a shallow cut on Orochimaru's side, but he felt his blade slide out of his hand as Orochimaru grabbed a kunai and disarmed him. Quickly creating a Chidori, Sasuke slammed it into the ground. He needed to create distance between the two. The force from the attack blew the two away from each other, but Sasuke wasn't expecting the kunai Orochimaru had in his hand to be thrown at him. He had no time to dodge, so he had to pull out the kunai impaled in his stomach when he landed on the ground with a slam. Luckily, he had landed near where his sword was thrown, so he crawled over and picked it up, getting into a standing position with a bit of trouble. He looked up to Orochimaru, who appeared to be pulling a sword out of his mouth, with disgust. So you want a sword fight, Sasuke-kun? He smiled once the sword was out, and charged forward. Sasuke quickly got into a defensive position, but before either of them could make contact with the other, some landed hard on the ground in between them and the area was covered in dust. Naruto, who had landed on their field, was bloody and bruised, mumbling to himself about how he hated snakes when Sasuke snapped him out of it. Naruto, get your over here and help. Naruto quickly complied. I took care of Manda. But I think it would be best if you never summon him around me, Sasuke. He advised as the duo stood back to back, keeping an eye out for the snake Sannin. That was, until a sword shot out from underground, both boys jumping into the air, Sasuke staying up by flapping his hand-like wings and Naruto gathering chakra into a bright red demonic Rasengan. Locking eyes with Sasuke, Sasuke quickly created a Chidori, and both flew towards Orochimaru with their arms held out, bracing themselves for the impact. As the jutsu connected, a large burst of power once again threw Naruto and Sasuke back through a couple trees. Panting and unsteady, the duo got up again, and looked towards the clearing dust only to see. What the hell, he looks the same as before. Naruto yelled in exhaustion. Did he dodge it? Sasuke's eyes narrowed in realization, he retreated underground. We need to get him to stay still, and hit with a Chidori and demonic Rasengan. Naruto guessed. Got it. Sasuke pulled out his sword again, while Naruto created 10 shadow clones, all pulling out a kunai. Orochimaru was having a bit of trouble taking on these two at once. He did look in a lot better condition than the other two, but he was worn out and starting to run low on chakra, not that he'd let Naruto and Sasuke figure that out. Pin him down. Naruto yelled as Sasuke and the clones charged. Orochimaru had his sword out, and thankfully for Sasuke, Orochimaru couldn't counterattack since all the clones were parrying him with kunai. It was pretty even, but the Narutos were slowly disappearing at times when they accidentally left a spot open. But their luck was changed when an arrow came flying in and hit Orochimaru on the arm he used to hold his sword. Naruto quickly took out another arrow and continued to accurately fire them at the snake Sannin. Sasuke took a chance too, staying close to Orochimaru, trying desperately to pin him with his sword and putting all his trust into Naruto not to skewer him with an arrow. We want to know all you know about the 7 deadly sins. Sasuke ordered, breathlessly, grinning as he disarmed Orochimaru's sword. In the land of waves is their base. But I'd like to see you get to them. Orochimaru glared, dodging another arrow which gained his attention for a second. Sasuke grinned. That was all he needed, Orochimaru's distraction and an opening. He thrust his sword straight through the Sannin's chest, skewering him to the ground. Naruto, let's do this, Sasuke said as Naruto stood next to him. Good riddance, Sasuke said, producing a Chidori with the last of his power. And have fun in hell. Naruto agreed, taking a deep breath and pulling deep into the last of his demon chakra, creating a larger red Rasengan. Chidori. Demonic Rasengan. And with that, a huge burst of power erupted from where all 3 attacks hit Orochimaru at the exact same time, sending both of the men flying back as Orochimaru exploded and disintegrated in the flash of colors. Sasuke and Naruto landed on the ground with a thud, their demonic chakra, curse mark chakra fading away from themselves and chakra burns covering most open parts from the sheer force of the attack they had just used. Suddenly, they both froze, sensing another person nearby and heading towards them at an alarming rate. With a sigh of relief, they saw Jiraiya, Misaki and Roki appear in front of them. Jiraiya looked over to the battlefield, watching as the 2 brothers got into a standing position. Did you? Is Orochimaru dead? Once and for all, Sasuke said with conviction. But their victory was short-lived as Misaki suddenly turned a pale color, collapsing onto the ground, gaining everyone's attention. Misaki, Naruto called out, watching in horror as the wolf literally melted into the forest floor in a burst of chakra. Hinata, Naruto called out in realization, something must have happened to Hinata. And with that, they all ran as fast as their legs would allow, their exhaustion all but forgotten, to the place they were sure Hinata would be. Demon couple, with Hinata, a few moments ago. Hinata was starting to tire, pulling out all the demon chakra she could handle as she continued to dodge the attacks coming from Kabuto. But a blast of pure power coming from where Naruto and Sasuke were fighting distracted her for a mere second, giving Kabuto time to sneak behind her and literally destroy the muscle tissue in her upper back. He had been watching her every movement intently, and noticed all her demonic chakra was situated and always flowed out of her upper back. As she hit the ground forcefully, Kabuto wasn't expecting the sudden burst of Gobi chakra that burst out of her petite body. Hinata quickly charged the last 2 steps. She had to finish him off now, and threw an overcharged palm strike straight at Kabuto's chest, killing him instantly. As soon as she let out that last burst of chakra, Hinata realized that it wasn't such a good idea as she stumbled around the ground, a searing pain in her upper back. The seal. Hinata realized, Kabuto must have messed up my seal somehow. She realized as she slammed onto the ground, her demonic chakra randomly bursting out of her body, and mixing with her natural chakra, a slow and painful process. She knew as the demonic chakra was overriding her chakra paths, and she lay face first on the ground, breathing heavily, trying desperately to stay in control. About the time Masaki dies. Hinata-chan. Naruto's frantic voice echoed throughout the forest as he saw his raven-haired Kunoichi lying flat on the ground. He could feel the demon chakra practically leaking out of her as he reached his girlfriend with a look of pure horror on his face. He pulled his girl onto his lap, ignoring the pain from the bursts of demon chakra she would give out randomly. What's happening to you? Please, please don't die on me, I love you. Tears were already streaking down his face. Sasuke watched the spectacle, breaking from his usual, cool, facade with his own tears trailing down his cheeks. He didn't say anything, but stood there breathing heavily from both exhaustion and shock, silently wishing and praying to anyone that'd listen to help his sister. My seal. Hinata let out, making Naruto's eyes widen as he looked over to the seal on her upper back, noticing the purple glow it was giving out. Jiraiya. Naruto yelled as loud as he could. The Sannin was the most skilled in the world on seals. And Naruto thanked Kami that Jiraiya happened to be with them. What? I heard you yell my name, and you never call me Jiraiya. He had been following slowly, but immediately shut up when he saw the looks on both boys' faces and the trembling Hinata in Naruto's grasp. Her seal. Naruto answered stoically, as if already detaching himself from everything around him. Naruto had been through a lot in his life, but if this happened, if Hinata didn't make it, that would be it. That would send Naruto over the bridge. And Jiraiya knew it. Jiraiya ran over the girl, a look of pure determination on his face. He owed a lot to this girl, she loved Naruto. And he was grateful for that. Naruto didn't know it, but he needed love in his life, and she was the one to give it to him. Jiraiya wasn't even sure if Sasuke would make it out of this one, okay if Hinata didn't make it. He saw the way him and Hinata acted around each other, like siblings, really. To Sasuke, Hinata and Naruto were both his siblings. The way they acted you would think they were all blood related, apart from the fact that 2 of them were in a relationship. Which would make Hinata more of a sister-in-law, but you get the drift. Overall, Jiraiya didn't know Hinata all that well, but she was starting to grow on him. All 3 of them were. He was even starting to like Sasuke. Quickly dismantling those thoughts from his head, he scanned the seal. Noticing all the muscle tissue in her upper back was snapped, he quickly guessed what might have happened. Holding out his glowing palm, he ran his hand over the glowing mark, his eyes widening in realization of what was actually happening to the girl. This has never happened before, he mumbled to himself, but, since it had been absolutely dead silent, the other 2 men heard him clearly. What? Sasuke tried to remove the sob out of his voice as he knelt down next to the group, gently ruffling Hinata's hair like he always did, watching Naruto's chakra-burned hand gently caress her cheek, as if it would stop her face from scrunching up in pain. They're merging. I think she'll be okay, but I can't be positive. The only way I can even guess this is happening is by the fact that I know that it will happen to you, Naruto. The 4th made your seal so that you and the Kyuubi will merge. And that is what's happening to Hinata here. It is an extremely painful process, where she needs to absorb all of Gobi's chakra and then merge it with her own, but I'm pretty confident she'll be okay. He let out a sigh of relief after hearing his own words, as if he were listening to it instead of being the one saying it. He guessed it felt much better to say it out in the open, making him more confident in his assumption. But we need someone to heal all her injuries. She needs to get to a hospital. Jiraiya barely finished the sentence before Naruto, Hinata and Sasuke literally vanished into thin air. He would have no idea what happened if he didn't notice the small dust trail heading towards town. Slowly, he followed after them, to make sure Hinata got out of this alive. Sasuke sighed as he watched his brother start doing training exercises for the 6th time in the past hour. Naruto and Sasuke had healed since their encounter with Orochimaru, not even a scar on any of their bodies. It was the 4th day since the attack, and Hinata still hadn't woken up. Jiraiya had told them, though, that it was a slow process. But Naruto wasn't one of those people who could sit by and do nothing, and Sasuke could tell that the boy felt hopeless, so tried to distract himself with stretches and push-ups which he had been doing all morning. He usually would be outside doing a full-out training session. Even Jiraiya offered to train him for a day, but Naruto wouldn't. No, he couldn't leave her side. So he just subsided to doing one-handed push-ups. Naruto, Sasuke chided, giving his brother a cautious look. This is the 6th time in the past hour. You should just go for a walk to calm your nerves. Sasuke tried to get Naruto to calm down. Naruto looked up to Sasuke, but what if something happens? I can't go anywhere. I'm here. I'll make sure she's okay, and stays okay. Now, go for a walk, calm yourself down. Roki is still here, he'll tell you if she wakes up. He pushed. Naruto stood perfectly still for a moment, staring at the unconscious face which was his girlfriend. Her face was no longer scrunched up in pain, which was either due to the painkillers, or that the process was nearly finished. Jiraiya came by yesterday and gave another checkup on her, deciding that she was going to be okay. Naruto let out a long sigh and a small, okay, and walked out of the room. Sasuke sighed, again. He was worried, but strangely enough, it wasn't because of the raven-haired beauty lying in the hospital bed beside him. Because he knew that she was going to be okay. He could feel it, but he was worried for Naruto. And he hoped, he really wished that Hinata would wake up soon. At least for Naruto's sake. Sasuke's eyes widened and he nearly jumped out of his skin when he saw Hinata mumble into the blanket, moving slightly and showing signs of waking up. Well, someone must have been listening to his thoughts. Quickly, he sat by the side of her bed, watching her intently. Imouto. She quickly rolled over. Sasuke ni. She grumbled slightly. The widest grin Hinata had ever seen suddenly appeared on Sasuke's face. You're okay. He smiled, ruffling her hair and gaining that small pout that she always had on her face when he ruffled her hair, just making him grin wider. Yeah, I'm okay. Hinata froze as she seemed to remember what had happened. I killed him, she remembered, her eyes wide. He saved my life, in the Chunin exams. I was gonna die that day. And Kabuto saved me, and all I could do in return is kill him. She was shocked at herself, at what she had done. Sasuke's eyes widened in realization, understanding what she was going on about. Kabuto is not a good guy, Hina Imouto. He probably only saved your life to show all the other doctors up. Sasuke said seriously. Yeah, but he saved my life all the while. It just hurts to know that he saved my life, and I just killed him in return. I feel so bad about it, Hinata sighed, looking down. Hinata, he used that against you, didn't he? Gaining a confused look from the girl he continued, in your battle, he told you this, so you wouldn't kill him didn't he? So you'd at least try to only knock him out, without killing him. You really think a good person would use someone's feelings against them like that? Sasuke asked gently. Hinata nodded in understanding. Okay. She said to herself, thinking about the whole battle. So don't feel bad about it. He deserved what he got. Besides, you wouldn't have died that day. Naruto probably would have done something stupid and reckless and you would have survived. Sasuke smiled gently. But we weren't going out back then. He'd do it for any of his friends. Sasuke smiled as he felt the familiar chakra signature of Naruto who was running this way. He looked over to Hinata, who had visibly brightened. She had felt his chakra too. Well, I'm going for a walk. I'm pretty sure I don't want to have to watch this. And with that, Sasuke disappeared, and the door burst open. Naruto was charging a million miles an hour as he burst through the door, a blur to everyone around him as he landed at the side of Hinata's bed, lifting her up in one fluid movement and pressing his lips firmly to hers, showing her how much he missed her, how much he loves her, and how much he'd kill anyone who tried to do that to her again with one passionate kiss. Hinata smiled as he pulled at her lips gently and she threw her arms around his head to run her hands through his unsuspectedly soft spiky hair. Naruto couldn't help but chuckle slightly at the remembrance of the last time they kissed like this. It only ended with them both falling onto the ground. Hinata gave him a confused look, but he just shook his head and reclaimed her lips, which she happily obliged. Guys, you have to see this. Sasuke burst into the room, and after seeing his two friends kissing, he turned around and faced the door with a sour expression on his face. I should have known. I really should have knocked. He was okay when they simply gave each other a small kiss, but he didn't need to see them make out. Sasuke. Damn it. Stop interrupting us. Naruto complained. Sasuke turned back around, deeming it safe for his eyes. You don't know how much I wish I didn't have to see that. Anyway, look at this. He reached over to the table beside the bed and flicked the television on. You may not have heard of them, since they have only recently grouped together, but they are definitely a very strong trio that you wouldn't want to mess with. The masculine voice of the newsreader on the television was saying. The first one in this invincible trio would be the leader, Naruto Uzumaki. All three of them watching the television smiled at this false bit of information. They were hoping people would guess that Naruto was the leader instead of Sasuke. He has recently been known as Konoha's destructive kitsune, and has been traveling with two other companions. Although he is traveling with two missing nins, he is still loyal to Konoha and wears his Hitai proudly on his forehead to show it. Some people would guess that he is in a relationship with the second member of the group, Hinata, but we don't know for sure. Hinata was originally from Konoha, but has left her village over 3 years ago, after a scandal that only herself, her team and the Hokage knows about. Over the years, Hinata had gained the name, the demonic beauty, and her name tells it all. Men ogle her as she walks past. Naruto let out a small growl, but she never flaunts her perfect features. We men may be in with a chance, though, unless she is, in fact, in a relationship with the leader of the group. The last member of the group would be Sasuke Uchiha. All the members from the group at least used to be from Konoha, but Sasuke had left the village with Orochimaru. Sasuke, the poisonous snake avenger, is definitely the speed in the group, Hinata being the stealth, and Uzumaki being the strength. This definitely is not a team to mess with, especially after their most recent exploits, which was the death of one of the Sannin, Orochimaru. The newsreader continued with a smile. At the moment, we have one of the other legendary Sannin, Jiraiya, live, who is quite close to the group, and is willing to answer some questions of ours. All three watched as Jiraiya was standing next to a different, female newsreader as she turned and asked him a question. So, Jiraiya-sama, how long have you known the three? I have known of the three for a long time, but only recently have I met two of them. The other, Naruto Uzumaki, I have known for a while. He was in fact my student for quite a while. What about the rumor of said Uzumaki being in a relationship with Hinata? 3 pairs of eyes paid explicit attention, hoping he wouldn't give anything away. I will not give out any personal information about the trio, but I can say both men are extremely protective of young Hinata. When you say it like that, does it mean that both men in the team are in fact fighting over the woman? No. Not like that at all. They are all practically family. Jiraiya corrected his mistake, and the three watching thought it was weird how Jiraiya was being so polite and professional. Well, they guessed he did have a reputation. Well, you hear it officially from the one and only Toad Sage. So it would be best to not get on this new trio's bad side. Back to you, Hugo at the news desk. Sasuke flicked the television back off, smirking at the information that was given out. Naruto was grinning. We have those cool name thingies. He was excited about that. That is so awesome. That was recorded live in Iwagakure, so I'm guessing he's on his way back to Konoha then. Well, I guess he needs to tell the Hokage about what we learned about the 7 deadly sins. Sasuke thought aloud. 7 deadly sins? Hinata questioned, unsure on what they were talking about. That's what Orochimaru called the 7 mutants. We'll have to look into it. Sasuke then turned to Naruto, remembering something. So, are you going to do it? Hinata looked on, confused as Naruto thought to himself, I don't want to leave you guys. Her eyes widened. Leave? She asked, shocked and worried. What did he mean by leave? Jiraiya suggested I do sage training while you were out. But I don't know if I should do it or not. How long? Hinata asked, thinking it through. I don't know, that's the problem. It will take however long it takes to finish sage training. Naruto let out a sigh. Hinata pursed her lips together, deep in thought, you should do it. She decided rather abruptly. But I don't know if I can stay so long away from you guys. Naruto sighed unhappily. I know. It'll be hard for us too. How about if you're still doing your sage training, and it's been that long, like, we'll summon you here once a month. And you can get Roki to stay with us, and tell us when you're ready. Hinata thought aloud. Sasuke nodded, happy with Hinata's statements so far. Yeah, and while you are doing your sage training, Hinata and I can use our days by walking towards the land of waves. We won't approach the enemy without you, though. If we get there and you are still training, we'll just look up all we can about the 7 deadly sins and this Takasho. Okay. When do you think I should leave? He asked. The sooner you leave, the sooner you will return. Sasuke reminded. Okay. Then how about tomorrow morning? That gives me enough time to pack all my stuff, and prepare. Naruto decided, earning 2 nods from his friends, as Naruto prepared for his trip to Mount Myoboku and Hinata and Sasuke packed for their travels. Demon couple. Okay. Roki, stay here. I need you to help Sasuke look after Hinata for me. So I can keep in contact with this group. Naruto told his companion as he pulled out a large red and white reverse summoning scroll so he was ready. Naruto then turned to his brother, Sasuke, if I get back and my girl's in anything other than perfect condition, he said threateningly. Yeah, I know. I'll look after her. She's my little sister. Do you think I'd let her get hurt anyway? Sasuke asked with a smirk, ruffling the hair of the now pouting Hinata. Little. Don't you guys think I can look after myself? Hinata sighed, pouting. Naruto laughed. Yeah, I'll miss that. He traced Hinata's pouting mouth with his fingertips. Sasuke let out a sigh. Great. A sappy moment. I don't want to see you guys make out, so I'll wait outside. He left, leaving the couple together. Smart. Naruto grinned, thankful for his brother's correct intuition, before turning to his absolutely gorgeous girlfriend. I'll miss you so much, Hina-chan. Hinata hugged him. I'll miss you too, Naruto-kun. If you ever need anything, or want to talk to me, just sit next to Roki and tell him. I'll be listening through him, and he'll get my attention so I can stop whatever it is I'm doing and listen to you, okay? He hugged her back, rubbing her shoulder reassuringly. Hinata nodded her head. I love you. She said, moving her face away from his chest so she could look in his eyes. Closing in on the distance between the two, Aishiteru Hina-chan. He gave her the gentle smile he saved only for her before closing his lips on hers. Hinata let out a slight whine into the kiss as she wrapped her arms around his neck, and Naruto knew it meant she's going to miss him and doesn't want him to leave but knows it's for the best. Naruto lifted her up by the hips, letting her wrap her legs around his waist so she was taller and they were closer together, with Naruto gently rubbing her back with one hand, the other keeping her steady on his hips. Hinata ran her hands through his hair, massaging his scalp as she knew he loved as she opened her mouth wide enough for his tongue to seep in, exploring the dark cave he knew quite well by now. Hinata felt that familiar shiver as his tongue brushed against hers, their breathing in sync, feeling the other's hot breath in their own mouths as Naruto backed up and sat down on the side of the hospital bed, not once breaking the lip lock. Naruto let out a light moan of disapproval into her mouth as she broke the lip lock, smiling up at him. Sorry, but I do need to breathe, you know. He let out a husky chuckle. I would have given up on breathing long ago for this. Hinata went to say something, but was interrupted when Naruto's lips were once again upon hers. Not that she was complaining. Leaning backwards, onto the soft bed, the couple continued to kiss for a while, knowing it would be the last time for the duo in a while. Demon couple. Leaving the room, not long later, they approached the smirking Sasuke, who was sitting on one of the seats outside of their hotel. Took you long enough. Naruto grinned at his brother. I was simply savoring the moment. Before setting the reverse summoning scroll out, open, on the floor, I'll miss ya, bro. Take care of yourself and my girl. Any guy tries to make a move on her, kill him, or just make sure they regret it. But I'd prefer the first option. He grinned, giving his brother one of those man hugs. Sasuke smirked. Will do. You look after yourself too. Okay. And get Roki to get us to summon you when you want to drop by, okay? Catch ya later, brother. Naruto smiled, biting his thumb, kissing Hinata on the cheek, and slamming his hand onto the seal already created on the scroll, suddenly disappearing in a puff of smoke. Hinata, Sasuke and Roki were on the road to the land of waves, but both of them felt so different without Naruto walking with them, asking every 2 minutes if they were there yet and how long it would take. It's really quiet without Naruto. I would have thought that I'd be glad he isn't asking me how long it's gonna take every minute, but at least I could argue with him, and when we were arguing it seemed to go so much quicker. Sasuke sighed, looking ahead of them as they walked down a dirt path. Yeah, oh well, I guess we've got to go to Wave and research about the 7 deadly sins. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. Hinata thought for a second. I wonder what would have happened if Naruto didn't end up coming with us. Right at the start of our journey. It sure would have been different. But what surprises me is the fact that we haven't seen a speck of Akatsuki while we've been wandering. I think that might be because we are getting pretty famous. I've already killed 2 of them, Naruto and I then killed another later on, so they're probably suspicious and know they can't take us on, all 3 of us at once. If I was Akatsuki, I'd try to split us all up, and then, in groups of 2, take us out. Because that'd probably be the only way to get us. Hinata added thoughtfully. Sasuke gave her a surprised look. Whatever you do, don't go to the Akatsuki. We'd all be done for. He complimented, shocked at her way of thinking. Hinata smiled at him. Thank you, Sasuke-ni. But I'm nowhere as good as someone like Shikamaru. And Akatsuki aren't dumb. They might already have that idea. But I reckon we can take them on. We have the Byakugan, Sharingan, the apprentices of 2 of the legendary Sannin, and 2 Jinchurikis. Once you think about that, we have a pretty awesome team. Sasuke smirked at his little sister. I really think Naruto's starting to rub off of you, Imouto. You have changed so much from the shy little girl in the academy. Arigato. Demon couple. Sasuke was sitting out, watching the fire flicker in the night, as Hinata slept quietly in her sleeping bag. He didn't want to sleep yet, because the night was so calm and refreshing. He enjoyed sitting out, watching the stars. Hinata woke up with a start. She sighed loudly to herself. Another nightmare. She wished that they'd go away, but it wouldn't get out of her head. She'd been having them ever since her confrontation with lust. Imouto. What do you mean? Another nightmare? Sasuke asked from beside the fire, He didn't know his little sister was having nightmares. Did Naruto know you're having nightmares? Hinata sighed. She thought he was asleep. Sitting up, Hinata took a seat next to Sasuke by the fire. No, she said quietly. But she knew now she was going to have to talk about them. Roki walked up and sat next to her, licking her on the arm, bright blue eyes regarding her curiously. Is Naruto listening? Sasuke asked the kitsune, earning a bark and nod in reply. Okay, Hinata, you really should talk about it. She sighed again. Really, it's nothing. I've just been having nightmares. You'll feel better if you talk about it, Imouto. Sasuke urged gently, watching his sister pat Roki absently. Well, I've been having them ever since, lust. It isn't anything really. I just haven't got over it, I guess. I'm fine. Really. Hinata smiled at Sasuke reassuringly. It's okay. It was the only way, right? Anyway, I'm fine. They're just nightmares. I'll get over them soon enough. Her smile faltered for a second and Roki let out a low whine. Sasuke knew she was lying. No, you won't. But me and Naruto will be there. We'll help you out. Did something happen? He was curious. Hinata sighed again. I freeze up when someone gets too close for comfort. But not your Naruto, because I feel safe around you guys. What do you mean? It happened the morning we were leaving. This guy came up to me, and I was pushed up against the wall. I was about to fight back, but I saw the look in his eyes. I froze up. He was practically dripping with lust. But then this other guy tripped over and knocked him over, snapping me out of it. And I just ran. She looked away, into the fire while Roki was growling and Sasuke was deep in thought. Roki, what does Naruto think we should do? Sasuke asked for his friend's input, but Roki just continued to growl, making Sasuke sigh, other than beat the crap out of the guy that came up to her. Roki fell silent after that, and Hinata let out a sigh, watching Sasuke continue to think it through. I think, Sasuke started, for the meantime, I'll just keep an eye on guys around you. But if I'm not around, take a deep breath and calm yourself down. Or, before they get too close, and you know what's going to happen, make a run for it and find me straight away. I'll set them straight. Hinata smiled and hugged him. Thank you, Sasuke ni. And laughed when Roki let out a whimper and hugged the fox too. Now we should really get to sleep, Sasuke said with a yawn, and slipped into his own sleeping bag, while Roki curled up next to Hinata, because Naruto was still uncomfortable with the situation and wanted to be with her. Demon couple. 2 weeks later, when the sun was almost directly above the ninjas' heads, Sasuke and Hinata had finally reached the land of waves. Well, we should find a hotel, and then head out to the library or something, Sasuke decided, Hinata nodding in agreement as she followed him. Soon enough, Hinata and Sasuke were standing out the front of the library, with Roki at their side. Walking inside, they came up to the counter, where a very pretty tall blonde was standing, her sandy blonde hair in a long braid. Hello. Did you want any help? She smiled, her chocolate brown eyes watching them curiously. Yes, please. We're looking for any information you have on the 7 deadly sins. Hinata raised an eyebrow at Sasuke's slightly pink face as he and the young librarian locked eyes. The librarian was a little startled at those words, and glanced curiously at Hinata. Why would you want to know about them? Sasuke and Hinata noticed the slight tinge of suspicion in her voice, as if she was cautious. Research for a project we're working on. Sasuke answered smoothly. Ah, right. This way please. The long blonde-haired librarian blushed and walked across the aisles. I'm Sahana, by the way. She added as an afterthought. I'm Hinata, and this is Sasuke. Hinata smiled kindly. Sahana froze this time, spinning around to look straight at Sasuke and Hinata. Do you know a Naruto by any chance? Sasuke smirked. Well, one dobi comes to mind. She blushed prettily as Sasuke looked at her. I need your help. Wait, you're looking up the 7 deadly sins for a different reason, aren't you? Research. Hinata insisted. Sahana gave her a doubtful look. Please tell me you're doing what I think you're doing. Can we go somewhere private? I really need to talk to you. After an unsure look from the duo, she continued, please. My father, Suhiko. As soon as his name came out of Sahana's mouth, she had their attention. Sasuke cut her off, let's go. Demon couple. The trio were now sitting in a booth of a restaurant, and Sasuke and Hinata were somewhat surprised when Sahana put up a silence seal, so no one would hear their conversation. But now they knew that Sahana was a ninja. Sahana-san, Hinata started. Please, call me Hana. She interrupted politely. Hana-san, are you a ninja? Sahana smiled gently at the small girl, not a very good one. I'm more of a medic nin that specializes in venoms. Don't ever doubt your ability as a ninja, it will only stuff things up. Sasuke said, giving a look to Hinata, remembering when she was like that. Hinata let out a sigh. Trust me, as soon as you start believing in yourself you'll get better. She trailed off, wondering why she was like that. You can't just naturally be that unbelieving in yourself. For Hinata, it was the fact that she was beaten regularly and called worthless. You were abused mentally and or physically as a child, weren't you? Sahana was startled at that true bit of information. How do you know? She got a little bit defensively. Hinata just smiled reassuringly. I think you've realized who Sasuke and I are by now. After a nod from Sahana, she continued, you and I probably had a similar upbringing. I was the worthless failure of the Hyuga clan, beaten and bruised regularly. Only something like that would make someone not believe in yourself as you do and I used to. I know it's hard, but you have to believe in yourself. And stop trying to please the people who hurt you, it won't work. Sahana's complete attention was on Hinata. What did you do, Hinata-chan? How did you start believing yourself? Hinata sighed. Well, my clan were trying to kill me, for reasons I intend to keep secret, and I ran. Became a missing nin and grew confidence while I was on my own. Sahana gave her a sympathetic look. That must have been hard. Now, we need to know everything about Suhiko. Sasuke changed the topic. Sahana nodded. My father, he was once a Konoha shinobi. But he started experimenting, learning to experiment like his sensei, Orochimaru. Sasuke looked over at Hinata. Well, we got rid of Orochimaru, so let's hope he didn't surpass his sensei. Hinata grinned, but this time you'll have me. Sasuke chuckled, ruffling her hair before turning back to Sahana. Why did he leave the village? He was caught experimenting on humans. So they threw him out. But he continued, and soon enough, he heard about the 7 deadly sins. He found them quite interesting and it took him 3 years to complete them, which was about a year ago. He placed the souls and minds of the 7 deadly sins and summoned them into the bodies of 6 men and 1 woman. Although, it didn't turn out quite as planned. The bodies weren't strong enough to carry the sins without any side effects, and the bodies mutated. Sasuke and Hinata were taking it all in. Do you know anything else about the sins? No, I've never met them. My father and I had a fight, and I'm staying here, in Wave, for a while, working at the library for money. Sahana apologized. It's okay, Hana-chan. I guess we can head back to the library and find out all we can on the 7 deadly sins. Sasuke smiled once again at the girl, making her blush as they all walked to the library. Hinata smirked, wondering if anyone else noticed he called her Chan. Demon couple. Hinata sat on her bed, sighing and looking up at the ceiling. She had just spent hours and hours in the library with Sasuke and Hana and she was exhausted. Hinata had left, but Hana and Sasuke were still in the library looking through books and unknowingly flirting with each other. Hinata smiled to herself, a little sadly as she noticed how close Sasuke and Hana were getting. She was getting close to Hana too, because they were so much alike. She was a little surprised though when Hana called her Imouto for the first time. So in return, Hinata started calling her Hana-ne, but seeing Hana and Sasuke together, looking so much like a couple, just made her miss Naruto more. She looked up when she saw the door edge open, and Roki come inside and sit next to her on the bed. Hinata smiled at him, and patted the overly large fox. I used to do this all the time with Misaki when it was just the two of us. Roki made a whimpering noise and licked her on the arm. Is Naruto listening? She asked the dog, earning a bark in affirmation. Good. Well, I miss you. I know it's only been 3 weeks, but you've missed out on a lot. Sasuke ni and I have been working heaps, looking up the 7 deadly sins, and they are lust, envy, greed, wrath, sloth, pride and gluttony. We worked out that these beings were created, and the best way we could kill them is to pin them up against each other. Hinata recalled, petting Roki casually as she recounted. Oh, and you'll be happy to know that our Sasuke has found himself a girlfriend. Well, neither of them will admit it, but I can tell that they both like each other. Her name is Sahana, and I know you'd approve of her. She is very nice, and you'd be here annoying the hell out of them if you could. She's the daughter of Suhiko though, but you can trust her, and know that she is on our side. She wants her father stopped, and I can't help but feel a connection with her, because both of us have grown up with abusive fathers. It kind of sucks though, seeing those two together. It just makes me miss you even more. Roki let out another whine and licked her on the cheek. Yeah, I love you too. I know there are so many things that you want to tell me, but you can't, and I know you'll ace that training. Good luck, and I love you. I'm going to go see what the love birds have found out. Hinata stood up and left the room. At the end of the month, 9 months into their trip, Hinata was casually walking around town, leaving Sasuke and Sahana to research the 7 deadly sins for a while by themselves. She couldn't help it, seeing those two together, even if they didn't realize they liked each other, it was just hard on her. Letting out a big sigh, her thoughts drifted to Naruto. She missed him so much, and it had only been about 4 weeks before he'd left. The sound of yelling snapped her out of her thoughts, and she turned around towards the noise, where 3 middle-aged men were yelling at a young boy, who only looked to be around 13 years old. Who the hell do you think you are? This has got nothing to do with you, brat. So stay out of it. The tallest of the men, with long brown hair, was yelling at the kid, and with Hinata's eyes, she noticed him clench his fist together as it hung beside him. Hinata couldn't bear the thought of the boy getting hurt, so she ran over to the group as he began to swing, effortlessly grabbing his punch with one hand and glaring down the men. What do you think you're doing trying to lay a hand on a child? The men's eyes widened at how fast this lady was, and the fact that she was a female and still able to block his punch like it was nothing. But putting that thought away, the leader of the group pulled his fist out of Hinata's and gave her a lecherous smile. You're cute. What's your name, sweetheart? Hinata took a deep breath to calm herself, a look of disgust in her eyes, and was about to retort when someone bet her to it. That is no way to treat a lady. The young boy yelled at him, making the guy glower harshly at him. Hinata smiled at the small brunette. Thank you, she said before turning back to the other guys. Now I think you should apologize to this young man. The guy smirked. And what would I get out of it? He slowly stepped closer to Hinata, a seductive smile on his face. Hinata took a step back uncomfortably, but heard a new voice. Well, you wouldn't get your kicked for one. Hinata let out a huge sigh in relief because she knew that voice. I happened to promise a guy that I'd look after his girl, and I would be happy to kick you for even talking to my Imouto like that. But even then, you should be glad I'm the one here, not a certain somebody else I know. Hey Sasuke ni. Hinata smiled as the large man stepped back with a HMMPH. I see you've already caused some trouble. He let out a sigh, before turning to the man. You better get lost right now, or you are going to get your kicked. He placed a hand on the hilt of his sword for affect, and Hinata smiled and added chakra to her gloves and clenched her fists, making her blades appear. The men quickly disappeared after that, and Sasuke let out a long sigh. He's going to kick Mai for not beating the shit out of that guy. Sasuke. The voice of the young boy was shocked as he walked up to the 17-year-old. Sasuke looked over to the kid, finally remembering why he looked so familiar. Inari. You've grown a lot. Still causing trouble, I see. You know each other. Hinata was confused. Sasuke nodded at his sister. Yeah, you know that story Naruto was bragging about, the one with Zabuza and Haku, which was majorly over-exaggerated. After a nod from Hinata, he continued, this is Inari, he lived in the house that we stayed in. Hinata nodded again, before turning to Inari, nice to meet you Inari, I'm Hinata. Inari smiled widely, hello Hinata-chan. Is Naruto-ni and Sakura-chan with you guys too? Sakura isn't, but Naruto is, kinda. Hinata tried to explain, before turning to Sasuke, can we summon him? Sasuke sighed, but he knew his sister was missing Naruto, so he let out a whistle, and Roki came running. Hey, Inari, is it okay if we summon him at your house? I'm sure Naruto would like to see you guys again. Inari wasn't quite sure why they had to summon him, but nodded enthusiastically anyway and lead the way to his house. Demon couple, Ka-san, Ji-san, Inari yelled as they walked through the front door, we have guests. A tall brunette walked into the room first, immediately recognizing Sasuke. Wow, you've grown into a handsome man, Sasuke. Is this your girlfriend? She's really pretty. Wow, I'm Tsunami. Sasuke let out a laugh. No, she's not my girlfriend, more like a non-blood related sister. You probably wouldn't believe it, but this is Naruto Dobi's girl, Hinata. At that moment an old man walked into the room, and his eyes widened in shock at what Sasuke had said. You mean that idiot got himself a girl like that? Hinata blushed. Excuse me, but it's not very polite to talk to someone like that, especially if she's in the room, and I would appreciate it if you didn't call my boyfriend an idiot. Both Tsunami and the old man's eyes widened at that. Wow, she's polite too. Well, I'm Tazuna. Nice to meet you, Hinata-san. She let out a priceless smile. Likewise, Tazuna-san. Before pulling the scroll out of Roki's back, do you have any place where we could summon Naruto-kun? I know he would like to see you again, but he's training at the moment. Inari grinned, we have room in the backyard. Demon couple. Sasuke turned to Roki as Hinata laid the scroll out on the grass open. Now, warn the Dobi that we have guests, okay? Because knowing him he'll latch right onto Hinata. After a nod from Roki, he gestured Hinata to perform the summoning. Removing her left glove with her teeth, she bit her thumb and did a few hand signs, so she wouldn't be sent to the mountain. Only Naruto would be sent here, and slammed her fist onto the paper, backing away as a poof of smoke appeared. Strong arms suddenly wrapped around Hinata, glomping her silently before letting out a loud, I missed you. Happy to have Hinata in his arms again after so long. Hinata let out a laugh, not fair, I wanted to be the one to glomp you. She pouted. In return, Naruto just hugged her tighter, so happy to see her again so soon, I was told we have guests. Sasuke let out a sigh, yes, and the whole reason I told Roki to tell you was so you wouldn't embarrass yourself and my little sister by doing this. But we haven't seen each other in forever. He then noticed the three other people who were standing there, watching him intently and with shocked expressions on their faces. Inari, Tazuna, Tsunami, Naruto said, still holding onto Hinata and staring at the other three people. I haven't seen you guys in ages. He grinned at them. Well, his attitude hasn't changed. Tazuna laughed. Not one bit. Tsunami agreed as Naruto hugged the life out of Inari. Naruto turned to Sasuke, I heard you got yourself a girlfriend. He wiggled his eyebrows, and Sasuke immediately turned to Hinata, who was suddenly looking innocently away. Her name's Sahana. Hinata stuck her tongue out at Sasuke playfully, earning a chuckle from the guy. Okay. Sasuke gave up. I might like her, a little bit. Woo. Little Sasuke's growing up. Naruto grinned, good job Hina-chan. The couple high-fived. I knew it. She laughed as Naruto just glomped her again. So how have you been? You had Havito have done something awesome. Inari asked excitedly. Naruto laughed, I am awesome. Of course I've done tons of awesome things. He bragged, have you heard about me on TV? We are awesome. You mean, the group of three? That's you guys. Tsunami was the one who said that. Wow. I heard Naruto Uzumaki, but would never have believed it would actually be you. Wow. You guys killed Orochimaru. Yeah, so I guess all our training has paid off. Naruto grinned. I don't know why everyone keeps saying it was all of us. Because I didn't kill Orochimaru, it was you two. I really shouldn't be getting all this credit, I only took out Kabuto. Hinata sighed. But you kicked his. Naruto reminded her. Naruto-kun. I was in hospital for days after that. She rolled her eyes, she really wasn't that awesome. But that's only because he messed up your seal. Yeah, and because of it, I'm a Hanyu. And I shouldn't have let him catch me off guard. Hinata continued to protest. Sasuke put a hand on her shoulder. Imouto. The only reason he even lived that long is because he was using your feelings against you. You're too kind-hearted to kill someone who saved your life when you were a genin. He saved your life. When? Naruto asked, curious and confused. After my match with Neji. I would have died that day if it wasn't for him. Hinata sighed, trying not to let the guilt get to her. You wouldn't have died. Naruto told her seriously, I would have made sure of that. Sasuke smiled, I told you. Naruto would have probably done something stupid and reckless and saved your life in the most unbelievable way possible. Hinata nodded, alright. Naruto suddenly remembered something. Hey, I wanna meet Sasuke's girlfriend. And the trio and dog walked off towards the library after saying goodbye to Tazuna, Inari and Tsunami and agreeing to eat with them that night. Wait. Hinata quickly turned back to Tazuna and his family. Is it okay if we bring one more person for dinner? She asked politely. Of course. Tsunami smiled. She really enjoyed talking to the polite girl, since there really weren't many that young around. Thank you. Hinata bowed before turning to Sasuke. Your girlfriend going to have dinner with us. Demon couple. Hana-chan. Sasuke called out as he saw the familiar blonde woman looking through books. Yes. She did a complete 180 until she was facing the group. Oh, hey guys. Do you have any more information? Hinata shook her head. No, sorry. We came here because Naruto wanted to meet you. Oh, so you must be Naruto. She smiled at the blonde male. I'm Sahana, but please, call me Hana. I've heard a lot about you. Naruto grinned. I've heard much about you too, Hana-san. It's nice to meet you. Hana smiled. Likewise. Now is there anything you guys want? Naruto and Hinata shared a look. Well, not at the moment, but we are heading to a friend's place for dinner and Sasuke was wondering if you wanted to join us. Naruto grinned. Even though it wasn't Sasuke's idea, it did make the girl blush. I would love to. She glanced at Sasuke for a second, who was, surprisingly, blushing too, but it wasn't very noticeable. So, have you found any more information on the sins? Sasuke asked, a little uncomfortable with the past topic. She smiled widely at that. Yes. I've figured out that my father and his mutants are outside the village in an abandoned wooden lodge. When do you think we should attack? Hinata answered that, as soon as Naruto completes his sage training. Naruto nodded in agreement. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea, and while I'm doing that, Hina-chan and Tem can train you. Sasuke rolled his eyes at the nickname. That sounds like a good idea, then we'll finally take on the 7 deadly sins. How about I leave again tomorrow? I need to get this training done, and then I'll be like unstoppable. Oh, and Roki's been telling me that we're going to merge soon. Naruto added as an afterthought. When? And will you be out for days like Hinata? Sasuke asked. No, it'll be different since it won't be forced to happen. I'll be knocked out for about a day, but I'm sure the toads will look after me. But Roki will disappear, so before I leave I need to make a copy of the scroll to take with me so I can summon myself here, and you can also summon me if it's urgent. Naruto smiled. That's the smartest thing that I've ever heard you say. Sasuke was bewildered. Hey, I say tons of smart stuff. Naruto protested. Come on, let's get to Tazuna's place. Hinata sighed, and lead the four to Tazuna's house. Naruto knocked on the door of Tazuna's house, waiting as Tsunami opened it. Oh, hello. She smiled. Come on in, it's nearly ready. Everyone sat around the kitchen table, talking, eating, and introducing Sahana to the rest of the group. The food was delicious and everyone took a quick liking to the new member. That was until Tazuna decided to ask the question that everyone seemed to be wondering. So Naruto, how did you end up with two missing nin? Tazuna asked once everyone had finished their food. You don't seem the type to stay away from your village for too long. Naruto grinned. Well, that's a long story. Come on, take a seat in the lounge room. We'd love to hear it. Tsunami smiled, leading the four into the cozy lounge room. It was small, but Inari, Tsunami, Sahana and Sasuke sat on the long couch, and Tazuna and Naruto sat on the single-person recliners, but Hinata had to sit on Naruto's lap from lack of space, not that she was complaining. Well, I guess it started with Hinata. He looked to her on his lap with a smile. She had planned to leave the village, and no one had any idea of her plan. Why? Inari asked, interested. Hinata gave a small frown at those thoughts. My clan were going to kill me. She didn't want to tell them all about the Gobi, because, although Naruto and Sasuke knew them, she didn't trust many people with her secret, and it isn't like the Gobi is inside her anymore. Why? Why would someone do that to their own clan? Tsunami was the one to ask now. She was disgusted with the thought of a clan killing one of their own. I was a liability. I was planning to destroy the caged bird seal after all. But I don't even think they knew about that. They just didn't want a failure in their clan. They thought of me as worthless, and couldn't have me as heir. They expected too much from me, stuff no normal person could accomplish, so they were going to kill me and finally keep their clan stable in what they thought was strong. So I did the only thing I could, leave. Hinata explained. Naruto continued from where she left off, and everyone had their eyes glued to the couple in interest. Even Sasuke hadn't heard the story in this much detail. She came up to me, before I left the village with one of the Sannin for training, and confessed her love to me and kissed me. I was so shocked I didn't say anything as she disappeared, not even suspecting anything as she didn't walk back through the gates and went in a different direction. Anyway, sometime during my training, I finally realized that I had fallen in love with her after being so distracted and having no idea why I couldn't keep my mind off of her. Sahana smiled at Naruto then, letting out a small, "Ah, that's so cute," and Tsunami nodded in agreement. Well, Naruto continued his story, everyone paying explicit attention to every word that came out of his mouth. Listening in awe and shock as he told the story about how he started his journey with two missing nins. So, now you have to get them to try and come back with you? Tazuna asked. Yep. Naruto grinned. How long have you been gone? Tsunami asked. This is nearly the end of the 8th month, so we are more than halfway through our journey. Sasuke answered. So what are you doing here? Tazuna asked. Well, we've kind of got business here. An evil man has made 7 mutants and are going after Konoha, so we're going to take them down. Naruto answered confidently. Sahana piped up next. She had something on her mind and she had been wondering about it for a while now. I was wondering, how did you find out about the sins anyway? By the disgusted look on Sasuke's face and the murderous one on Naruto's, they decided to drop the subject and sat in silence for a few moments until Hinata decided to break it. So, how's your training been going, Naruto-kun? She asked as she snuggled up to him on the one-man recliner. Naruto let out a sigh, hard. So far, I've been beaten with a stick so many times I get so numb I can't feel it, and trying to be perfectly still is so hard. I mean, it better be worth it. Seriously, I never knew it was going to be so difficult. But I'll definitely master this training, and be stronger than ever. He decided confidently. Sasuke let out a chuckle at the blonde's whining. Well, you better keep at it, because we've got some sins to destroy. Hinata gave him a reassuring smile. Don't worry, you'll get there soon enough. Naruto looked up to her with a heart-warming smile in return. Thanks love, I'll try and be quick for you. He gave her a delicate kiss on the forehead. Take your time, I know you'll master this sage training, and don't worry, while you do that, Sasuke and I will make sure Sahana is good enough to take on the sins with us. Sasuke looked over to the girl that was sitting next to him. Not that she'd need that much help to start with, I bet she's an awesome fighter. Sahana blushed and Hinata clamped her hand over Naruto's mouth, muffling the Sasuke stop flirting that she knew was going to come out. Naruto looked over to Hinata, prying her hand away from his mo.